when paperwork leaves the body. There are moments when paperwork is not just paperwork. A form can look ordinary. A residency approval can look administrative. A legal status can look like something that belongs in a government file. But the body knows better. The body knows when home is uncertain. The body knows when the future is conditional. The body knows when safety depends on an answer that has not arrived yet. And when that answer finally comes, something leaves the body. Not all at once, not dramatically, not like a movie. More like a background alarm finally stops running. That's what residency approval did for me. It did not magically solve life. It did something more specific. It removed a major uncertainty from my body's forecast. Before approval, my nervous system had to keep asking questions in the background. What if this doesn't work? What if we have to leave? What if my home becomes temporary again? What if the systems I escape become relevant again? And for me, that last question had weight. Because in the US does not only represent a place I came from, it represents a system I had to survive. Systems that tried to correct difference, systems that treated divergence as a disorder, systems that confused control with care. When people talk about curing autism, they may think they're talking about treatment. But to my body, that language does not feel neutral. It sounds like an old system waking up again. It pathways back my brain to places where people tried to fix parts of me that were never broken. It reminds me of religious systems that tried to fix my sexuality. It reminds me of environments where difference was treated as threat. It reminds me being told, directly or indirectly, that becoming acceptable meant becoming less myself. That is not abstract. That lands in the shoulders, in the chest, in the stomach, in sleep, in my attention, in my ability to plan. So when legal status becomes stable, the nervous system receives a different message. You can stay. You can breathe. You don't have to prepare for a forced return. You don't have to keep rehearsing emergency futures. That is why paperwork matters. Not because bureaucracy is meaningful by itself, but because bureaucracy controls access to home, safety, medical care, stability, family continuity, and the right to remain in an environment where the body can regulate. A legal status is not only administrative, it changes the body's threat model. And this is where the human systems becomes visible. We often talk about government systems as if they operate outside the body, but they do not. They enter the body through waiting, through uncertainty, through deadlines, through missing documents, through unclear instructions, through the possibility that one decision can destabilize everything. The system may call it processing, but the body calls it threat. Leaving Polo Digital also mattered in this larger pattern. It was another piece of instability removed from the field. It was not because one place is the whole story, but it's because several uncertain systems are not active at once. The body can't fully settle. Residency, work environment, social pressure, future planning, money, identity, safety, home. Each one becomes a signal. And when too many signals are unresolved, the nervous system does not experience life as open. It experiences life as pending. That word matters. Pending. A person can live pending for a while, but they cannot flourish there forever. Here's where in Costa del Sol something different has been happening. My body has been learning that the environment is not constantly asking me to defend my existence. The light helps, though. The walking helps. The sea helps. The rhythm helps. The culture helps. And the distance from a certain American pressures helps. But more than anything, the system signals are different. I'm not in an environment where my autism is being framed as something to erase. I'm not surrounded by the same religious repair logic. I'm not walking up inside the old threat architecture. And that gives my body room to do something very basic. Live. Not perform stability, not explain stability, not justify stability. Just live. And here's a mistake that many people make when they look at relocation, immigration, or residency. They think the question is only, where do you live? But often, the deeper question is, where can your nervous system stop defending itself? That is a different question. And for neurodivergent people, queer people, immigrants, veterans, disabled people, and anyone who has lived under corrective systems, that question is not philosophical. It's practical. It affects health. It affects creativity. It affects memory. It affects connection. It affects whether the future feels possible. This is also why I do not believe divergence is a defect. Difference is not a problem humanity needs to cure. Difference is how humanity adapts. If humans did not diverge, we might still be trying to figure out fire, or the wheel, or language, or tools, or social systems, or art, or technology. Variation is not noise in the human system. Variation is part of the intelligence of the human system. So, when a culture becomes obsessed with correcting difference, it may believe it's creating order, but it may actually be attacking the very diversity that allows humanity to survive, adapt, and imagine new futures. That is why this residency approval mattered so much. It was not only permission to stay in Spain. It was a signal that the life I'm building here has ground under it. It meant the apartment could feel more like home, like the walks could feel less temporary. The future could become less defensive, and my body could stop preparing for a forced return to systems that do not feel safe for me. And when the body receives that kind of signal, it does not always celebrate loudly. Sometimes it just exhales. Sometimes the shoulders drop. Sometimes sleep improves. Sometimes creativity returns. Sometimes the mind becomes clearer because it's no longer spending so much energy scanning for collapse. That is the system insight. Safety is not only emotional. Safety is structural. And structure is not only external. Structure becomes biological. The forms, approvals, offices, deadlines, and decisions may live outside the body, but their effects do not. They enter the nervous system, they shape intention, they alter planning, they decide whether the future feels reachable or fragile. So when paperwork leaves the body, what leaves is not paper. What leaves is the alarm attached to the paper. That is the part many systems fail to see. They process documents, but humans process uncertainty. And when the uncertainty clears, even a little, the body knows. For me, this approval was not the end of every problem. It was not a fantasy rescue. It was not the perfect future delivered by bureaucracy. It was simpler than that. It was a stability signal. It told my body, you are not pending in the same way anymore. And sometimes that is enough for the next breath to arrive differently. Sometimes that is where home begins again.